You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.
Welcome to Volatility Views, the premier program for volatility traders. Each week, we'll take a deep dive into the world of volatility with in-depth analysis, trading activity reviews, strategy breakdowns, cutting-edge education, and much more. We'll also bring you exclusive conversations with the traders, researchers, and asset managers who are reshaping the volatility landscape. If it involves volatility, then you'll find it on Volatility Views. Old trading walks into a bar. New trading raises it. Unlike some guys, Tasty Trade puts traders first. Maybe you're the type to hunker down on your desktop for hours. Maybe you breeze by on your browser. Or maybe you just need that top-rated app right by your side. However you do it, Tasty Trade's got the advanced tools you need to tackle stocks, options, futures, and more, all in one place. Chart your heart out with over 300 indicators. See opportunity differently with interactive curve analysis. Use backtesting to learn from the past and plan for the future. The platform is only the beginning of better trading. You'll also find low pricing, lots of education, and backup from a support team that really gets how traders trade. It's no wonder Investopedia named Tasty Trade the best broker for options in 2024. Genius loves company. Go to tastytrade.com/podcasts and see for yourself. Tasty Trade Incorporated is a registered broker-dealer and member of FINRA, NFA, and SIPC. And now, it's time to take a deep dive into the world of volatility. It's time for Volatility Views.
All right, everybody, that music means we are back. It is noon Central. It is 1 p.m. Eastern. Do you know what's popping off in the world of vol? Well, let's find out together, shall we? It is time once again for Volatility Views. My name, of course, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Radio Network, upon which all of you folks hopefully are binging on your podcast device of choice. If not, what are you doing? Make sure you're subscribed to the full network if you want to join us right after the show for a little fun after party known as Options Oddities, where we get into some cool flow. In fact, we were just talking with the Flow Master yesterday. He discovered a new name yesterday. We had already profiled last May on Options Oddities. You want to check out all that fun? theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go. Also, rumor has it, Vol Deathmatch 2.0 in the offing this month. So you want to get your name in the hat this month if you want to check that out. Trust me, you do. If it's anything like the last one, it's going to be a banger. theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go as we learn who's joining us on Vol Views this week. Speaking of Vol Death Matches, we are joined by the man who is still suffering the scars and the trauma of his first foray into the Vol Death Match arena. None other than Mr. Russell Rhoads, now holding court from a lake house near you. He's a lake vol guy now. Mr. Rhoads, I'm glad to see you have slowly, I wouldn't quite say recovered, but you are processing the trauma from Fall Deathmatch 1.0. How's it going, sir?
You know, I'm a lot like Apollo Creed when he lost to Rocky with 1 second left. A man of my intelligence and stature has a very difficult time accepting that defeat, especially at the hands of someone like Jim. But, you know, I know where I stand with the audience. You know, they were the final say.
They were the final arbiters. I have no say. The pro members decided, and I think Jim lured them, maybe swayed them with a few savory cocktails or two out there. I don't know what it was, but Jim lured them to the dark side. I have to have a rematch down the road, so maybe polish up your Vol saber as we keep rolling on out to the land of lumberjacks, where he is doing his best Monty Python lumberjack impression. None other than the rockingest of lobsters, Mr. Andrew Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. Mr. G, welcome back to the show. I assume you have seen the Monty Python lumberjack sketch.
I have. It's been a while, but I have.
It has been a while, but when I see you today, it does spring to mind.
it does. That's I'm trying, because now I'm an egg farmer. My chickens are producing eggs on a daily basis.
You know, your lives and mine so parallel, it's almost eerie.
It is. I'm waiting now for the fox to come back because I want to add more chickens in the spring. So we're gonna increase the empire, the chicken empire.
You're literally trying to catch the fox in the henhouse, listeners.
Yes. Yes.
Andrew, living that life we can all relate to as we keep rolling. Clam pirates, fox in the henhouse. Let's see if the vol fox is invading the henhouse or not as we kick off a little bit of the old volatility review.
It's time to break down the latest developments in the volatility trading world. It's time for the Volatility Review.
All right, everybody, let's get down to business. A little bit of the old volatility review, the portion of the show where we break down what the heck was lighting up our tapes this week and indeed today in the world of vol. And coming into the end of the week, you know, it's been kind of a yo-yo week. We're up, we're down. Been a lot of red on the screen this week. Got some green back yesterday. And today's been another one of those turbulent sessions where if you don't like where we are, just wait 5 minutes. Had a decent little range already on the S&P, over 30-odd handles in the S&P today. Selling off a bit, rallying a bit, selling off, kind of hanging out unched, and that's pretty close to where we are right now, up about 0.05, 0.06% in the S&P right now. So green ever so slightly, but again, just wait 5 minutes if you don't like those levels. Dow pretty much literally unched. NASDAQ, same deal, which is saying a lot for the NASDAQ to be unched. It takes a lot for the NASDAQ to really be nowhere. Usually it's whipsawing somewhere. And speaking of going somewhere, VIX Cash is looking a little bit firmer, a little bit frothier than when we were talking about it last week. In fact, it's a little bit frothier than when we were looking at it earlier this morning. We were hanging out pretty close to a 15.5. Now it's up to about 15 3/4, up a little over 1 point, about 1.15 points. So everybody who's loading up on all that VIX downside out there, at least for right now, having a little bit of a challenge if it's going out next week. The clock is ticking, but we shall see out there. Interesting stuff in VIX land. Volley was looking at about a 1260 right before we kicked off the show. That puts it up about 0.6 of a point. It was hanging out pretty much exactly at a 12 even on the show last week. And our old pal VVIX, aka the vol of vol itself, at exactly 100, puts it up a whopping 13 handles. So things a wee bit spicier, a wee bit tastier perhaps, depending on your vol flavor of choice, a wee bit tastier than they were this time last week. It's been a little while since we chatted with the Rock Lobster on the show. In fact, I believe it's been a year since last year when we chatted with him. So, Mr. Rock Lobster, I will get your vol musings on this week in a second. But before we do that, everyone else has had their chance to ruminate on the mad vol year that was last year. What stands out to you as you look back on 2025 from a vol perspective, sir?
Besides the graveyard of VIX puts that I created in 2025.
I kept telling you to stop buying those 15 puts. You didn't listen. You were buying them all year long since April.
I don't know. The worst part was like, it wasn't even, it was like 16s and 17s.
Yeah, you loaded up on some 17s towards the end of the year.
There was a time when you would buy a 17 put and be like, oh, okay, you know, I buy it for $1. I'll sell that for $3.50. Not last year. Okay. Not last year. I think that was, you know, we never saw the zone of the monk last year. The monk was non-existent. I also had, it was a year, from my observation, but Russell might have data, is this was the worst VIX SPY anti-correlation year that I could remember. Meaning, usually you have that relationship, SPY goes up, SPX goes up, your volatilities get lower, the average vols get lower, and, VIX drops. This year, like, the more we rallied, the more VIX climbed. Like, they were dragging the at-the-money volatility up. It felt like every freaking day. So the anti-correlation was very weak. Not great for one of my strategies, by the way. So that was the worst year that I could remember, probably in 10 years. And there's always a little bit of the anti-correlation, that like where the anti-correlation breaks. But this year I feel like it was very strong, like the strong market rally and just vol staying bid the whole time. And we did have a couple periods of single digit realized vol, and it just didn't matter. And it was very it was, let's say, challenging. So I just wasn't getting a lot of money for volatility puts this year. But short SPY was a loser, except for April. Really, there's a couple other down drafts, but for the most part, it was kind of buy up, vol up. It felt like all year. Those are the two biggest observations. And I mean, and going at the end of 2025, starting now, like we had again, holiday reduced VIX to like 13.5 on the 23rd of December. And we peaked at an 18 a couple days ago, and SPY going to all-time highs again. So you get the same kind of like, what the hell? It's like everybody discovered, buying puts and buying stock. That's what it feels like. And just volatility not going down. So I'm curious about Russell Has, if he had those kind of observations from last year. All I know from a trading point of view, the actual prices you put options on, when I tell my students, you want to see what the market's doing, buy a put. Want to see what the market's doing, buy a call. Okay? If it's going up, you have an idea what's going on. If the put's going up, or you're not getting any progress, right? Price is ultimately the ultimate indicator. And if you think volatility is going down, but your VIX puts aren't going up, vol ain't going down. All right. Anyway, I'm curious to see what Russell has to say on that subject. I don't know if he has that data at hand. I just know from an observational and a practical, as in trading point, it was very, very nasty. The only thing, it worked? Just being long. Like every time we had a dip, I just bought stuff because I was already long so many SPY put spreads that were going out worthless. It didn't matter anyway. So I just bought stuff. I bought stocks all year, had a great year buying stocks, terrible year being short vol. There you go.
Before we get
sometimes the long vol, the dumb stuff is better than the super smarty pants stuff. That's all I'm going to say.
Or you just bought gold or silver and rode it all year. You had a pretty good year.
If sadly I did not have that, I did not have that in my crystal ball where silver would triple in price or something.
Or you're like Uncle Mike, you rode it all year and then you closed it at the end for a good win, and then you left 50% on the table just in a couple of weeks. I mean, silver has been absolute. We could do a whole show on silver vol, but I digress.
Madness.
Luckily, we have a couple of shows for that, listeners. Check out the Futures Rundown and This Week in Futures Options. If you want to talk a little silver vol, and spoiler alert, we did. Before I'll buy Russell a few more minutes to crunch his numbers to respond to your data.
It's going to take me a while on crunching the numbers.
But before we do that, Mr. Rock Lobster, what are your thoughts on this week, the second trading week of vol for the new year, sir?
Yeah, I would say it feels like more of the same. I believe now and also I'm going to say for 2025, we're always waiting for something. Fed announcement, a tariff announcement, this and that. Like, I feel like the volatility market was dominated by these events on the calendar that we couldn't quite quantify. This year, we're waiting for the Supreme Court to decide whether tariffs, then the Donald can just go randomly tariff people. Although it did bring a lot of money into the Treasury apparently in the last quarter, because the deficit apparently was going down. But the Supreme Court might put a wrench in the monkey work. So we're waiting for that Supreme Court to opine on that.
Yes, I think we said that pretty much for the last few years. We're waiting on something all the time, waiting on a Fed decision, NVIDIA earnings. I'm always waiting on something out there. That could be the subtitle for any trading show, waiting on something out there. But Mr. Rhoads, we are now waiting on you, sir. First off, if you have a rebuttal or response to Mr. Rock Lobster's notion that last year was the worst year for VIX SPY negative correlation in the history of man, I believe he said. Have at it. And then B, what else is catching your eye out there in the vol markets this week?
Well, it definitely, VIX didn't do what it's supposed to be doing when the S&P 500 is making new highs. We're aware of that. And it didn't feel like VIX was ever doing really what it should be doing. Making all time. And one of the things that I want to break out, you guys got me all excited now. I'm going to break out like a breakdown of the handles for VIX when the S&P 500 makes an all-time high. Woo. And see how, I'm going to break that out as well. And as we go along, I'm going to run some correlation numbers as well. I just downloaded the daily percent changes for both of them from the last day of 99 through yesterday. I did want to, since I know there's no place that this fixes in the program, but have either of you noticed that SIBO is now quoting VIX as a percent?
Have they finally succumbed to the masses?
Yeah, no. Is it Michelle Wu or I've forgotten which one is the mayor of Boston, which one works for SIBO? They're sisters. But the kind of the VIX researcher over at SIBO now.
Mandy Zhu?
Mandy. Her sister is the Boston mayor. Mandy put out a report talking about where VIX was, and it showed VIX at 14.5%. And I was like, wow. That would make Mark Sebastian so freaking happy. He may even move back to Chicago and give somebody at SIBO a hug because that drove him absolutely insane.
That would really piss off the meatball if he heard that.
He used to get on to me about it big time, and I was like, you know what? I work at the exchange. I get to set the rules here. But I don't work at the exchange anymore. Now she does. But I just thought our crowd would get the biggest kick out of that. It might even be a decent survey. Do you agree with doing it that way or not? I'm totally taking over your program.
I gave up that fight a long time ago. I know Meatball used to give me a hard time on it.
And then it happened.
But you can't really express it in any other terms that make sense for a trading audience. They want to know how much did it move in a day, and if you can't use percent, you're kind of going with one hand tied behind your back. So every once in a while, I'll throw out the caveat of the red meat for the vol crowd, like the vol views crowd. I'll say, okay, I get it. Percent of a percent, I know, but you have to move past it. So once in a while, I will acknowledge it, but that's mostly for the meatball. But for the most part, I think everyone else has pretty much moved on. He is still stuck in the past.
We're all turning into old mans that we just can't change our attitude about anything.
Aside from VIX terminology usage, what caught your eye out there in the vol markets this week, sir?
We continue to get that, and gosh, I wish I just sat at the screen all day and traded like I used to, because it seems like you get a get short VIX opportunity almost every week. It went a little bit farther this week than it normally does, but in general, when you look at and when I start this program, one of the things I do is I pull up an intraday chart, starting just for the past week. And there always seems to be some sort of bump in the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday middle. And that bump often coincides a lot with some of the weekly trades that I see. So VIX gave us that opportunity once again this week. And, one other thing, and this relates to the curve a bit as well. I used to write up what happened with VIX every weekend on Saturday mornings. There's so many people doing it now. I just felt like we were all overlapping with each other. So I kind of let it go by the wayside. But often I would start out with, what we're looking at on a week over week basis does not tell the story at all. And this is definitely one of those weeks where, we got some decent midweek volatility, but on a week over week basis, things don't really look like they changed that much.
Yeah, if you're just tuning into Vol Views at the end of the week each week, you might say, what's the big deal? Not much happened out there this week. Let's see if we can break it down for you in some more precise terms. Shall we, listeners? Out to the land of the vol term structure we go. And for the most part, things are up, if ever so slightly on the week. If I re-racked it right this second, it might be a little bit lower. But other than that, vol kind of hanging out a little bit stiffer, a little bit firmer out here this week. The Jan future up about 0.2 of a point from where it was this time last week. So we're not talking earth-shaking numbers here by any means, listeners. Feb up about 1/3 of a point, so seeing a little bit more juice on the Feb side, which is kind of interesting. And if we go all the way out to August, it's up not even 0.15, but close to that level out there. By the way, we top out, if we go all the way out to the end of our term structure, let's go out to the August-September timeframe, which again, getting perilously close to those midterms, listeners. We top out in September right around 21 3/4. So not quite at a 22, but also pretty far above the 20 handle. In fact, it seems like that May future right now is the inflection point where we get above the 20 handle? Is that just an early taste of what's to come later on in the year around the midterms? We shall see. Mr. Rock Lobster, sir, what is catching your eye out there in the vol term structure this week?
It is looking, I'm just going to say, well, kind of normalish. You've got a contango, kind of normal contango situation. But again, premium over realized vol is pretty high. Like I'd say what 9-day VIX is like 14.5 or 12.5 here. Let me just see. But I like using that. I like creating a little extra little mini term structure setup there with 9-day. Let's see. We are, yeah, it's 1183. VIX is 1540. Like, okay, that's like 1183 for 9-day vol. So 30-day vol is 15.5. And you've got the Jan future. Jan future is expiring today, but the Feb future is like what, 18? So realized vol is 9. So you're at a you're at 100% premium to realized vol in S&P 500. That would be a yes. So, folks, in the old days when you're trading in the SPX and you would buy options, spending a 13, 14 vol at the money, you're like, because that stuff would just melt in your hands. At 2025, you could buy it with impunity and it would never rot. So, and I appears to be the same thing going here today. So, and I totally get it. The market is, again, if stocks move enough in one direction, it really doesn't matter what vol you buy, because you just hold on to it, it goes up. So, and I think that is, I don't think that's and I don't think that's going away. It makes me, I know we're at all-time highs, but it actually makes me kind of more bullish for 2026. I wouldn't be surprised if we have a similar, at least for the S&P 500 return, like 8-9%. So, and these are my musings, observations, opinions. But as from a term structure point of view, the market is willing to pay for juice, and they're paying big, and nobody's in a hurry to sell it. That's all I'm going to say. Like, we're not going to a 13 VIX by Tuesday morning. Okay, it ain't going to happen. So, right now, I think the path of least resistance is still upside. Not downside. That's what I'm seeing in that term structure. Big premiums, and they ain't going away.
That seems to be reflected in today's flow. Got some near-term upside action lighting it up in VIX options today, but we'll get there in a little bit. Before we get there, Mr. Rhoads, anything catching your eye on the vol term structure this week, sir?
Yes, futures just remain elevated. And, we get January off the board next week. It's I'm looking at a 70-cent premium still. People are, I don't know if everybody's concerned about weekend risk or what for that one. And, then we're up, 18.10 or so. That right there, 260, 270. I mean, that's like a 270 premium for the February contract. Market is still braced. And, market's braced for a big spike. VIX is at higher levels than we think it should be because people are paying up for hedges. Everybody's prepared for the sell-off. And when everybody's prepared for the sell-off, they've got hedges on and they get new money. They're not as reluctant to put it to work just because they know that they've got that they're playing, they're working with some safety net down there. So I cannot remember the year, and it was back when I was at SIBO, but there was another year where VIX was a little bit higher than people expected based on what the S&P 500 was doing, and it came up a lot at one of the RMCs, and what I just said was the explanation back then as well. that, and they had one of the guys running one of the big college endowments that said, we're hedged against a 5 to 15% drop. So we don't care, or we're not very concerned about putting new money to work. And I just wonder if the elevated VIX, is an indication of continued hedging by institutions and individuals. And with those hedges, they're not so uncomfortable owning stocks as well. And that's just where we're at.
The psychological benefits of a little bit of hedging action. Are we seeing some benefits out there in the VIX options landscape? Was it a hot week? Well, we'll find out, listeners. Is it a hot day today? The answer is it looks decent, especially when you consider that in spite of the fact that we've had a decently active week out there, the VIX ADV is still hanging out a little bit shy of 700,000 contracts. I have a feeling we get another week like this that's going to start ticking back up. We had more than a few days north of 1 million contracts this week. Today, at about 419,000 contracts. So again, doesn't sound like a lot, but when you see that we're hanging out a little bit shy of 700K in the ADV, that certainly seems a wee bit more respectable. And how are we hanging out in our top 10 right now in VIX options land? We are still hanging out at the magical ratio, dare I say it, the golden ratio, where the top 10 has hung out pretty much since time immemorial, with a few notable exceptions last year. Yeah, it's 8-2 calls over puts. Let's see if we can find our put friend, shall we? Not at number 10. By the way, it cost you 166,000 contracts to break into the top 10 this week. That gets you to the Jan 21s. Looking at everything else we got on this board, that's one of the more reasonable strikes, dare I say it, on our list this week. Number 9, $1.68 of right to the fun, the Jan 60s. Number 8, 169,000 of the March 50s. And then number 7, 174,000 of the March 20s. So back to the, dare I say it, reasonable strikes, and getting a little bit of duration out there as well. Number 6, our first of 2 puts on the docket this week, 176,000 of the Jan 16 puts. Number 5, $1.86 of the Feb 47 halves. So our old pals, the other half of that, I think it's a 1/4 ratio spread, somewhere along those lines. We talked about it on our end of year rundown show. Just the fact that there's so much fixation on that 47 half strike is interesting, to say the least. Again, 186,000 of those open for number 5. Number 4, 206,000 of the Feb 25s. And then we have number 3, 225,000 of the Jan 20s. Number 2, 158,000 of the Rock Lobster's favorite put strike, the Jan 17 puts. And number 1 with a bullet this week, 268,000 of the Feb 35. So we are kind of all over the place once again in the top 10. And you know where else we're always all over the place, listeners? It's Russell's Weekly Rundown. So let's get there now.
Now, Russell's Weekly Rundown. Now, Russell's Weekly Rundown.
All right, Mr. Rhoads, our second full trading week of the new year. What caught your eye in VIX Weekly Options, sir?
Not a ton in weeklies. Of course, next week's a standard week, but some really good really interesting trades to talk about. On Monday with VIX at 1596, they were probably stressing over this one during the week. Somebody naked sold 350 of the January 28th 14.5 calls for 296. The break even on that is 1746. We did spend a time above 1746 this week, but they appear to be sticking that one out.
You gotta love just straight selling upside in VIX. That just warms the old cockles, sir.
Well, and you gotta they did this when VIX was right around 16 or so. So they got a bit of a buffer, but not enough of a buffer. And wasn't a whole lot on Monday. Tuesday, with VIX at 1521, somebody bought 340 of the January 14th 15 calls for 54 cents. They sold 340 of the 16 calls for 40 cents. They paid 40 cents. VRO was 1701, the VIX settlement. They probably wish they had sold the 17 calls instead of the 16 calls, but they did manage to score a nice 60-cent profit on that one. Somebody late on Tuesday with VIX around 1595. I don't know if it was an exit, but somebody sold 100 of the June 14th 16 puts for 23 cents. Those went out at no value. Also on Tuesday with VIX around 1588, somebody took advantage of what they thought was a higher end VIX, and they bought 300 of the February 4th 15 puts for 17 cents. A lot of interest in the 15 and 16 puts continuously. Needless to say, I'm not particularly happy about having bought 16 puts that expired this week myself. Wednesday, with VIX, all these with VIX at a 17 handle. VIX at 1727. Someone sold 200 of the January 28th 20 calls for $1.05 with VIX at 1781. Somebody bought about 1,000 of the January 28th 15 puts for 8 cents. This was definitely opening, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. And then this is the one we'll talk a little bit more about. And then on Wednesday with VIX at 1797, pretty close to the high of the week, somebody bought about 500 of the January 28th 16 puts for 22 cents. I haven't checked that, but I assume that they have done very well with that so far. Now, on Thursday, I am going to go against what Trade Alert says about this trade, and I'm going to explain why. So there were a slew of trades, 23,500 contracts in a couple of minute period on the VIX January 28 16 puts, and they all traded at 7 or 8 cents. The biggest lots were on the bid side, but the earliest lots were on the offer side or the mid side. Midpoint. So what I actually think they were doing is I think they were resting on the bid side, just because the majority of the two biggest blocks were on the bid side, but the majority of the trades were on the offer side and a bunch of small pieces. So I'm going with this being a buy. Plus, we would just rip all over someone that decided to sell 23,500 of the VIX January 28 16 puts at 8 cents. When VIX is between 1537 and 1551. I would want to find that person and have a conversation with them if they were. And this was an opening transaction. The open interest was nowhere near 23,000. So I usually in a situation like this, I would have gone down to the floor and asked. Can't do that because I'm in Indiana by the lake. But I'm pretty certain that was a purchase, and we'll keep an eye on that line through expiration on the last Wednesday of the month and see if I was correct. Hopefully, I'll see a big old selling trade. And then today, I only did this one because it's 222 contracts, and that's kind of like the silly numbers that Mark Sebastian likes, but he's not here. With VIX at 1542. Somebody did buy 222 of the February 4th 30 calls for 38 cents. I just would like to point out that Volmageddon happened in early February, so you never know.
Let's keep on rolling out to the land of our regular non-weekly little old standard VIX options action. Like we said, 419,000 contracts on the tape today, so decent action, all things considered. The hot option out there today, I said to the Rock Lobster earlier, there's some upside going up, and it's the Jan 17s going up about 33,000 times today. Average price for these, 47 cents. Kind of interesting. We haven't seen a ton of crazy upside, let alone near-term upside like this going up. Lately, it's been a lot of 16 puts and 15 half puts and all that kind of stuff. So it kind of caught my eye. I thought we'd ask you folks, are you down for a little bit of Jan 17 calls for 47 cents? Are you a buyer or are you selling the heck out of these bad boys? Right now, 60% of you want to buy them. 40% want to sell them. Get over there at options. Make your voice heard. That will be a flash poll that will run throughout the end of the days. I know a lot of you like to listen to Vol Views on Saturday while you're doing some of your weekend stuff. That poll will be closed. So get over there at options. Make your voice heard right now. Thursday, a bit of a banger day out there in VIX options land. Nearly 1 million contracts on the tape, 979 to be precise. The big dog on Thursday, 81,000 of the Jan 16 puts. They went up for an average price of around 43 cents. Same deal for those. We had a flash poll. We asked you yesterday, same deal when we were out at the Flowmass. Do you like these? And they were looking pretty good yesterday. They were already bid about a dime through this price. They had traded 60,000 times for 42 cents. At the time we got around to them on the show, they were trading well over 50 cents. So they seemed like a pretty decent buy at the time. And our audience agreed. 70% of you wanted to buy those Jan 16 puts for 42 cents. Maybe not loving it as much today as you did yesterday, but still, That's how the cookie crumbled yesterday. Number 2 yesterday, 71,000 of the Jan 20s. So interesting day yesterday, pretty heavy day. Number 3, 47,000 of the 15 half puts. Number 4, 46,000 of the Feb 16 puts. And number 5, 31,000 of the Feb 30s. Out to Wednesday we go. That was the banger day of the week. 1.4 million contracts going up on Wednesday. The hot option out there just a tick below 100K, 99,977 to be precise. Of the March 15 puts, freaking 15 puts, they will not give up, listeners. They will keep tilting at that 15 put. Russell just broke down a bunch of weekly 15 puts that are going up. There is some magic that captures the imagination on the 15 put. I don't know what it is. So far, that magic is just red in your trading account, but nonetheless, they're going to try it again. They went up about 100,000 times on Wednesday for 30 cents. That was opening flow. So you're getting some duration for that. I will give them that. Outside of that, I can't say I love the level. Number 2, 77,000 of the March 25, so going back up the other way. Number 3, 67,000 of the Jan 20s. Once again, number 4, 62,000 of the March 20s, so maybe some roll action there. Number 5, 36,000 of the Feb 35s. Tuesday, no slouch either, over 1.25 million contracts. So several days north of 1 million contracts. Thursday, just kissing it this week. So a decently dense week on the VIX options front. The hot option on Tuesday, 78,000 of, once again, the Jan 20s. Those are definitely the hot option of the week out here. Number 2, 76,000 of the Feb 20s. They're both closing again, so maybe we have a closing calendar here. Number 3, 65,000 of the Feb 25s. Number 4, 60,000 of the Jan 25s. And rounding out our top 5 on a pretty active Tuesday, 57,000 of the Feb 18 puts. Monday, kind of a sleeper, only 484,000 contracts on the tape. The hot option, such as it was, 27,000 of the Jan 16 half puts. We also saw some action, 27,000 of the Feb 15 puts. We asked you on the Monday option block show, are you interested in those? They traded for about 26 cents, and our audience liked them. So I guess you haven't learned either. 26 cents for the Feb 15 puts. 60% of you wanted to buy them. Can't stop you from doing what you want to do. Mr. Rock Lobster, sir, it's been a pretty surprisingly active week on the VIX options front this week. Anything catch your eye in particular, sir?
I had to be honest, I had to close my eye to any January contract. I just had to ignore it.
You had to close your one good eye?
Whatever siren song crap, I know with my one good eye, I'm like, I'm not looking at it. I am not looking at it. I'm not looking at it. And so from that point of view, I have noticed there was a little bit of action in February. There were again, February puts trading. Again, into that, we had that little kind of mini volatility rally. We traded like 18, what was it? Monday, I think, Monday, Tuesday this week, something like that. And there was some buying. But for the most part, I am not being sucked in by the VIX volume that I see. And I'm just closing my eyes and trying to ignore it. You gotta lay down. Like, what is it? What's your guy say? The option playbook guy. You
lie down until the urge goes away. Yes. Until
the urge goes away. So as much as I think volatility should be lower, that is poppycock until it actually trades lower. So I will believe it when I see it.
What's this I see? Are you super giddy about Portillo's, sir?
Yeah, I am so long that stock right now.
It has had a nice run.
I have to say though, my average price is now respectable.
Okay.
I've accumulated a lot of stock, and I sold a lot of 5 puts.
I may have sold some 5 puts myself. Delivery. Yes. I may have done the old average down. It's still the wheel if you keep selling puts.
Granted, I have traded it in and out, but I basically been long like 1,000 shares since 17. So from 17 to 5, that was no good. But I have loaded the boat down here, actually. I'm 4x the size.
You're
now.
going big or going home on some tasty Portillo's action.
And then I'm seeing that some of the insiders are buying, and I'm like, I've seen a huge jump in open interest in there. So, all I can say is you never walk out of Portillo's unhappy or hungry. Those are the two things that I would say.
I will say our chat has been doing their darndest. They've been slinging some Portillo's on our oddity show, and they say they're going every week now, just trying to support the stock. So there we go.
I got put my 5 puts. I was like,
yeah, me too.
That is like, guys, hell, I just sold some 6 puts. I don't care.
You're like, I'm taking it all, baby. Give me all.
I'm
that
taking
tasty
it all,
Portillo's.
But I think I'm done now. I'm done.
You're a little full, at least for now. Got to push away from the table, at least for now.
Yeah, exactly.
Russell's like, what are they talking about? Portillo's? So let's keep
I
rolling.
love Portillo's, but we have one in Indiana.
Oh, well, there you go.
You're lucky.
In Indiana.
You're lucky.
So.
No Portillo's in Maine.
Russell has historic data for you. We are breaking historic freaking data on this show right now, Mark Longo, benevolent dictator of the Option Insider Radio Network. Historic data.
You have crunched the Rock Lobster's supposition about correlation last year, sir?
Yeah. So the long-term correlation going back to the first day of the century is around minus 0.72. It was minus, and I've got to go out 4 digits for this to be a record. It was minus 0.8697 last year. We did in 2015 minus 0.8689. So we've come close, come very close. I do think the real significant thing is the second thing that I'm going to run, which is really what the handle on VIX has been as we've made the all-time highs last year. Because I really do think we're going to see a big differentiation, or we might find a couple of years where that has been the case, and there might be a story to tell with what happened the year after. But yeah, it was a much higher correlation. When the inverse correlation is that high, it's almost like, and I know that you can't invest in spot VIX, but the diversification benefits start to go away. You don't want something that's got like really close to a -1 relationship if you're trying to use it for a hedge, and you want to be a bit lower than that. So I don't know if that, if that impacts the effectiveness or the behavior of VIX relative to what we would expect or not. I'm only back to 2014 right now. I'm having to do them year by year as we go along.
Mr. Rock Lobster, do you feel validated, sir?
I do. Well, my it's like I said, when you really want to know what's happening, nothing like the actual price to tell you how things are getting shoved up your nose. You know what I mean? I would have used another term, but this is a family program. We like Portillo's here, so we're going to stay there. Delicious Euro sandwiches from what is that place? Skippy's. And, wherever.
Russell might get the award for the Vol understatement of the year. You don't want that high positive correlation on your VIX. No, you do not.
No, the reason I said it like that was I teach it in undergrad investments. That too much of a negative correlation gets you nowhere.
You tickled my funny bone, sir. I thought that was fun. I'm sure a lot of our listeners, I'm sure a lot of our Vol Views hardcores enjoyed it as well. Are you enjoying some other Vol products out here, listeners? Let's see what you're up to. Inverse Vol kind of hanging out a little bit lower than it was this time last week, right around 24.5, down almost half a point in SVIX. Putting up actually somewhat decent numbers for SVIX, 3,300. Doesn't sound like a lot, but the ADV is only 4,400. So this product just can't get out of its own way from an options liquidity perspective. But underlying wise, a little bit interesting out there. Maybe you're liking it right now. Maybe you're looking to sell some puts to get back into the lower level. Maybe you're gobbling some upside. Maybe you're sitting on the sidelines. I don't know. And Mr. Rhoads' beloved UVIX, which for the life of it could not really do anything over the weekend last year. Just another takeaway from 2025. The weekend, nobody cared. Nobody cares this year. We snatch and grab a foreign leader. Nobody cares. We're talking about bombing Iran. Nobody cares. A 5.5 up 0.15 in UVIX right now. Put up 31,000 contracts. ADV 39,000. It's actually down 2,000. Mr. Rhoads, any thoughts about your favorite Vol siblings, SVIX and UVIX this week, sir?
Well, UVIX did it last year. Well, first off, last year, on average, you would have lost 0.09% if you had bought it for the weekends. So it worked in 22, 23, 24, and just didn't, like Bittman used to say, things work until they don't. I think because there's a good theory behind it, and I actually was talking to a short vol fund mid-morning this morning about that, and they actually they do something similar, but they use VIX futures instead of using UVIX, and that was the discussion that we were having. And they said what they did VIX futures wise last year did actually work. So I'm gonna see, and they weren't totally forthcoming with what it was. So I've got all kinds of fun stuff to do now that I've got internet and I've moved into the lake house.
Living that lake of vol life that we all aspire to at the end of the day.
Isn't it a little early for a lake house? It's kind of winter.
Well, we moved here and school started.
And you're like, that's it. We're here.
Well, I mean, it's my 20 minutes from 20 minutes from the job, but in the middle, it's kind of nice. Kind of nice.
I'm like, now you don't have to leave. You don't have to leave. Yeah. You just get some chickens, and you never have to leave and talk to anybody, except like when I talk to you guys once or twice a week.
Yeah. And I'm definitely getting a shotgun for the coyotes.
There you go. All you're missing is the chicken coop, Mr. Rhoads, and you could be living that Rock Lobster life as well. A little bit of
yeah, I'll do free chicken coop building classes over here from Russell for data exchanges. There we go.
I do want you to know that I got a flannel shirt for Christmas, and I think that had something to do with moving to the country.
Oh,
nice.
There you go.
So that's a question. Do you move to the country and then get a flannel shirt, or do you get a flannel shirt and then have to move to the country?
All I know is I look like the good guy in a Hallmark movie now.
There you go.
Flannel is more of a state of mind than it is a fashion statement out there. And the Rock Lobster lives it 24/7. Mr. Rock Lobster, anything catching your eye in the world of inverse or indeed levered vol, sir? Or any of the vol ETPs, really? Pick your poison.
Just a simple observation from VXX is down a little bit from, let's say, right before Christmas, December 23rd, December 22nd, but VIX is up 2 points. Again, so this is for the listeners wanting to be a long-term VXX investor, even though VIX goes up, that is not what VXX buys. Remember, it buys futures, and those futures can still melt and make you miserable and sad. So, and that's so. And again, I think it'll probably be another hard year for the volatility products in 2026, but I don't know. I think we're going to see zone 1 this year. I believe we will, just because I believe of the way the kind of the geopolitics and some of all these other things are working out, but could be wrong. Zone 1 is not a good place for the vol products, although it's good for SVIX and SVXY. It is not good for anything with a U or a V in front of it.
All right, let's hit a couple of the others out here that Mr. Rock Lobster just mentioned. UVXY 35.20 when we kicked off the show, up about 1.2 points from where it was this time last week, putting up 23,000 contracts. The ADV is 29,000. That is unchanged on the week. Obviously, that's a lot lower than it used to be. That's kind of the other side of these reverse splits. We all love them, but from a product perspective, it kind of gums up the volume a little bit. So no free lunch out there in the product land at the end of the day. A VXX 26.25, up about half a point from where it was this time last week, also putting up about 29,000 contracts. The ADV 39,000, up about 4,000. So if you're slinging a little VXX this week out there, listeners, there you go. We kicked off earnings season proper this week with a lot of the financials. So if you want all that data for free because we like you, theoptionsinsider.com is the place to go. A pretty hot start to the week with a lot of the financials out there. And we've got all the data broken down, how they performed, what their vol levels were, what they expected, what they actually delivered, how the season is shaping up, all sorts of fun. And again, all for free because we like you. Theoptionsinsider.com is the place to go to learn more. As we get on into our final segment, it is time to break out the crystal ball.
It's time to peer into the future and reveal what the volatility gods hold in store. It's time to look into the crystal ball.
All right, listeners, welcome to the crystal ball, the portion of the show where we attempt to wrestle with the Vol Gods, see what they have on the docket for the coming week. As we come into the end of the show, not much change from the start of the show. Dow pretty much on S&P up a little bit more, about 0.1%. The NASDAQ up about 0.12%, so slightly moving to the upside a little bit out there. VIX Cash still flirting around that 15.49 level to be precise out there. In terms of last week's players, it was myself, it was Dr. VIX, and it was the greasy meatball out there. And we have myself. I was actually at a 1458. So I was exactly 1 point off, pretty much close to it. I was feeling a little bit less vol this week, hanging out right now at about a 1547 listeners. So yeah, pretty much 1.1 points off out there. Mr. Rhoads was feeling a 1484. So he also had a 14 handle, no joy for him. And the meatball doing his palindromic nonsense at a 1331. He was just cutting the legs out from under vol. Clearly, we are not there. If you're wondering, that was also his end of the year vol pick. So he's really doubling down on the 1331. So no winners. No. By the way, I need to recap the total of our winners last year for the crystal ball contest. Spoiler alert, it was me. Then again, I am on every show, so I have a little bit of a advantage out there, but I'll have to crunch the exact numbers to see what the tally was for the crystal ball contest for last year. But Mr. Rock Lobster, that means I now turn to you, sir. You have two dubious honors. First, you get to go first for the week because you didn't lose last week. Give us your number for next week. And then, what are you feeling for the close of VIX Cash at the end of the year? Because it's that time of the year, sir. It's time for our annual crystal ball contest.
Okay. I'm going to go Christopher Columbus, 1492 for VIX next week.
Oh, that actually was a winner on our VIX Crystal Ball contest last year. If you had guessed that last year, you would have been in the Crystal Ball Hall of Fame right now. Just like Rich Excel, who guessed that exact same level and is now a Crystal Ball Vol Hall of Famer, sir.
Wow. So I'm going 1492. And for the year, I'm going to say 1301.
Oh, you're feeling what the meatball's putting down, a 13 handle out there.
Yeah. 1301 for next year. We're going to have like a normal freaking Christmas where vol goes down and everybody gets their Santa Claus presents, okay? That's what we're going to have.
Tucsaw's also feeling a 13 handle for the end of the year as well. So all of you
I'll bet you Tucsaw's feeling bullish, a little more bullish than normal. Well, interesting.
I think he can't look past anything that isn't silver right now. He's just feeling the FOMO of the silver and just sadness. Even though he had a good year last year, he still is feeling it. I mean, the silver is absolutely ridiculous right now. But again,
having a return of 100% in silver is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, 25% in a week, pretty much. It's absurd. That's more than a year's worth of return in just a week so far this year, listeners. So again, wild stuff for the shiny stuff. Mr. Rhoads, you also lost like I did this week. So I'll give you a choice. You want to go next? Or you want to go last?
Well, I'm going to go next because I already know the number. It's 1575.
Oh, 1575. Gretchen, hot out of the gate with a little bit more juice. So here we are, listeners. Like I said, we're hanging out pretty close to a 15.5 level in VIX Cash right now. Mr. Rhoads going a little bit higher. Mr. Rock Lobster going a Columbus appropriate 1492. Lately I've been tilting a little bit more to the upside, and it has not been working out. But let's see if I could get us a little more of a bullseye next week. I'm going to say a 16 handle. I'm going to say 1628. That is your correct vol prognostication for this week. If you're listening live, get your guesses in now. If you're listening after the fact, get them in by the end of the day today, preferably. And then you too can play along the home game and win fabulous prizes. Speaking of winning fabulous prizes, I should congratulate yet again our Vol Hall of Famers for last year. We had Dan Gramza knocking it out of the park with his VIX end-of-year prediction of 15. Rich Excel going the Columbus appropriate 1492. Those are the two network guests who made it in this year. On the listener side, we had two winners as well. Go for Thomas and Ubernaut. Both at about, one was at a 1490, the other at a 1497. So congrats to all of you out there. You joined Steve Sosnick from last year in the VIX Hall of Fame, as well as listeners Cozy Coconut and Nico. So there we go. We've actually had 4 listeners win over the last 2 years as well. So kind of fun. Your red jackets will be in the mail, listener. That music, unfortunately, means we are out of time for this week. Mr. Rock Lobster, sir, if folks want some vol goodness, maybe they want to share your pain on VIX SPY anti-correlation, or maybe share some henhouse guarding tips, where should they go? What should they do?
Yes, you can go to my weekly profit cycles, which for years was exactly what it was. Last year was not my best year in there. But I'm adjusting for this year just a little bit. I have little tweaks. So heck, if you can't beat them, join them. 888-TRADE-01. And also my option fingerprint scanner is out there for scanning for lead volume and all kinds of cool stuff. First trade of the year, nice little win on it. So yeah, we are creating trade tools at Option Pit. And again, 15 years in business. Hard to believe that I've been teaching retail for longer than I was trading floor traders, but that's what it is. So
15 years, pshaw. I laugh at that, sir.
I know you're like, what is 15 years when you have 20?
Mere almost 20. Next year will be 20, which is absolutely wow.
That's impressive.
This January, we launched pretty much alongside the penny pilot in the options market. So there we go. We have been around as long as pennies have been around in the options market. So there you go. Check them out. OptionPit.com. Mr. Rhoads, if folks want to get a little bit of that Lake Vol musings, where should they go? What should they do?
Just follow you. Tune in here every week. That's where people should be, but you guys are already here. Anything I do, I throw out on Twitter. I've got a block option trading paper that has 3 options remaining from 2024 open that expire today. So I'm finally going to be able to share my results with following the biggest trade every day in 2024. It takes a while when you include leaps into your study. So I got 3 more to go, but 2024 is looking kind of like 2023 and 2022, where following big option trades actually makes sense if you're consistent with it.
There you go, listeners. Check them out. And if you like big options trades, we'll be talking about those right after this on the official after party of Vol Views, known as Options Oddities. If you're hanging out in the live hangout, we'll be back instantaneously in your ear holes. If you want to join the fun, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go. And of course, you know where to go to check out all the cool stuff we're talking about here on the show. It's the beginning of the year. Always a good time to give a big thank you to all the sponsors, including our friends over there at Tasty Trade, tastytrade.com/podcast, the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. All the brokers are fighting for the Vol Views audience. They all want you folks out there. Check them out, tastytrade.com/podcast. See what they have for you. That is going to do it for us this week. Back again next week with our usual array of content. Till we're back again next Friday, another episode of Volatility Views. Stay safe out there, everybody.
Old trading walks into a bar. New trading raises it. Unlike some guys, Tasty Trade puts traders first. Maybe you're the type to hunker down on your desktop for hours. Maybe you breeze by on your browser. Or maybe you just need that top-rated app right by your side. However you do it, Tasty Trade's got the advanced tools you need to tackle stocks, options, futures, and more, all in one place. Chart your heart out with over 300 indicators. See opportunity differently with interactive curve analysis. Use backtesting to learn from the past and plan for the future. The platform is only the beginning of better trading. You'll also find low pricing, lots of education, and backup from a support team that really gets how traders trade. It's no wonder Investopedia named Tasty Trade the best broker for options in 2024. Genius loves company. Go to tastytrade.com/podcasts and see for yourself. Tasty Trade Incorporated is a registered broker-dealer and member of FINRA, NFA, and SIPC.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.